Hey folks, this is Kelani. Going to be looking at the Snowblind Fractal in the new dungeon Fractals of the Mist. Now, the one particular mechanic that I'll bring to your attention straight away is frostbite. Now, if you're not near a fire or an area of warmth, essentially, you will get stacking debuff called frostbite. As this stacks, it does more and more damage, and the way to counteract this is to stand by a fire. Standing by a fire will give you stacks of warmth. Now, these counteract frostbite in that while you have warmth, you cannot get stacks of frostbite, but as frostbite would stack, it would reduce your stacks of warmth down to 0, and then you would start stacking frostbite again. Frostbite doesn't particularly hurt, it's only a little bit annoying because it slows you. Obviously, if you let your stacks get too high, you're gonna die regardless, because that's damage ticking over constantly. If you're not getting rid of it, it's getting worse and worse and worse. So bear that in mind. The first little part of the dungeon is really just an introduction to this mechanic, and you'll see that you can pick up a torch from the floor, happily light the fires or braziers that are down this path, and you can happily be on your way. So the first actual part of the dungeon is just down here. Now, there's an obstruction in the way. There's a nice big bonfire for you to stand nearby, but we're gonna get Sons of Svanir. Now, they do a few abilities, mainly the volley, which you just saw. They're not too difficult, just mark one down and nuke them in turn. It's usually the best way to get rid of them. Having someone mark is probably best, just so all of your fire is focused on one. Now, these will continually spawn. What you'll be looking for is the obstruction being broken. So as you make your way forward, you'll get to the area with the huge ice elemental. Now, this one has a few abilities, most of which knock back, slow, knock down, that kind of thing, to really irritate you. Obviously the blizzard is still going, so you need to get a source of warmth. As you can see around the ice elemental, there are the little fires. Sadly, the ice elemental does put them out, so you'll need to make sure someone is on the ball to get these fires roaring when they do go out. So to kill the ice elemental, you'll need to target the nice icicle, which is in the middle of the huge structure thing that's going on. It's not too difficult, it doesn't take too long, but the abilities can be a bit frustrating. So you can see that AoE going down there, that does a hefty amount of damage. It also does a targeted stun and knockback, which can be frustrating, and the thing you just saw was blizzard, I guess. Basically, a lot of snow will cover your screen. You'll get teleported to a random location within the area, and you'll just need to make your way back and get to a fire as soon as possible. You'll also spawn these ice elementals, which do an AoE knockback. There's a lot of knockback in here. I would definitely recommend taking a stability buff. But it's just rinse and repeat. This is relatively easy. Take down the ice elementals whenever you can and put as much damage onto the main structure as possible. Apart from that, keep warm and make sure your frostbite doesn't get too high. So as the ice elemental is destroyed, you'll notice that the blizzard lets up. This means that you no longer have to worry about frostbite. You can happily continue through the dungeon without requiring a fire nearby, which is always nice. You can still take torches if you really want to, but they don't really have any use. So this next part of the dungeon gets a little dark. We'll be heading through the woods, and there are 3 groups of enemies you can either avoid or kill. I recommend killing them, just so nobody gets caught out and nobody gets downed, so you have to go back and kill them anyway. You know, you may as well kill them as you go, instead of having to go back and kill them, which can take longer. So I'd definitely recommend killing them. They can hit quite hard, especially the wolves. They tend to eat your face quite nicely if you're not prepared for it. So make sure that essentially you're killing them and you're not taking too much damage in the process. Note that if you do pull either the wolves or the Svanir, they will both pull. So the wolves usually hang about a bit far away from the Svanir just to make sneaking past even harder. You can see here the group of Svanir are there, and then the wolves come across. they do pull as a group, so if you pull the wolves, Svenir come, if you pull Svenir, wolves come. Just to let you know. So after the forest we head into a little cave. Now the boss is here, the son of Svenir, shaman. Now he has a couple abilities. Note that he is melee, so any melee swings he does are pretty hefty. If you're in melee range, make sure that you've either got quite a bit of sustain or quite a bit of toughness and vitality stacked, because he does hit relatively hard. His next ability would be to disappear and send a lot of ice shards your way. Now obviously the red circles indicate bad areas, try and stay away from that. The location you saw me run to is generally a safe location. He'll pot down. His main ability you want to watch for is that, his little ice breath. Either make sure you've got him stunnable and stun it, or make sure the person evades it. It is incredible amounts of damage, it really is. That is pretty much what's going to be killing you if you die in this boss. So you notice the ice walls which are around. He'll smash them with his abilities, you can smash them. There doesn't really seem to be an advantage to smashing them. Most of them will get smashed during the little ice shard avalanche phase thing, so the only thing I can say is to try and work around them really. If they respawn and you're at their respawn location, they'll shove you out the way in the form of a small teleport, which can be a little confusing or frustrating, and depending on how you view that kind of thing. Apart from that, he will periodically trap people in an ice crystal. This only seemed to happen when someone was alone, and is probably due to the fact that he summons a little ice shard, and if it doesn't get destroyed, I guess it freezes someone. Probably shouldn't be an issue ever, because he summons the ice shard on top of him, and if you're kind of killing him, then it gets killed in the process, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But if people are getting frozen, that's probably the reason why. That's pretty much the fight, I'll be honest. It's quite easy once you get used to it. The frost breath is definitely the most difficult to take into account, especially if you're in melee, because it will hit anything around him, or it will hit anything in the cone. I.e., if you're in the way, you're probably not going to be feeling so great afterwards. Well, that's all I can tell you about this one. If you get this one, good luck and have fun. I hope you know what you're doing by the time you do. Thanks for watching, folks, and I'll see you next time.